Welcome to Funnel Reboot, the podcast that shares ideas on how to upgrade your lead generation. Here is your host, Glenn Schmeltzley.
Hey, Glenn here. Welcome to Funnel Reboot, where we give practical advice and advanced techniques on how to improve your lead generation. We're going to be talking today about conversational marketing. But first, I want to remind you that we've had some amazing episodes recently. These include ones that talk about marketing through uncertain times, how to qualify prospects over the phone for your sales development reps. Also, we had a great episode where we talked about social media marketing and how to organically grow an audience. If you haven't heard those, I'd encourage you to use your listening app or go to the funnelreboot.com site. Well, today I'm going to be talking with someone who is based in Southern Ontario, and he's built a chat-based campaign practice that he's applied for many organizations. He began offering his skills on a contract basis while he was still in school, doing a business degree at the University of Ottawa. His work was noticed by a faculty member who hired him for the business school's own marketing. Since then, he's picked up industry certifications and set up his own consultancy called Noetic Marketer, which serves mainly B2C clients. Listen when he talks about how you can see the pros and cons of using a native chat application or a social application where it's assuming a logged-in experience. Also, listen for how he explains the way to be upfront with the bot's nature, the fact that it's not a live agent. We're going to delve into how we can improve the buyer's experience by making scripts that try to manage the contingencies, nurture that person towards whatever outcome is right for them. Well, without further ado, let's get into today's show. Say your name and tell me what you do.
To the audience, my name is Andres Tovar, and I'm the owner of Noetic Marketer. As you mentioned, Glenn, we're a marketing agency that specializes in paid, organic, and SEO, and for small and medium businesses. And to today's topic, we've actually built a couple chatbots, and we've used conversational marketing to attract leads and seamlessly integrated into funnels so that clients can bring and increase leads and increase their conversion rate.
Thanks, Andres. Well, let's start by making sure that our definitions are all the same. And I know a lot of people have probably seen things on their social feeds or on websites that are asking them to chat, but maybe you could help by just defining for us which kinds of chat you're talking about when you say that you're helping to give brands a way to engage and bring on new customers with it.
Absolutely. So there's definitely different types of chats. Let's just start with the ones that everyone knows about. These are the messaging applications and platforms such as Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, and WeChat. Now, I hope we are able to touch a little bit more on these ones because their potential and their power should not be underestimated. Facebook Messenger, for example, has over 1.3 billion users. WhatsApp over 1.5 billion users, and WeChat over 1 billion users. So these are the main ones, and this is the ones that we use on a daily basis. Now, there's also the live agent chat. So these are the ones where we go into, they're mostly used for support services, where we go into a website and we start chatting with the live agent. Now, there's also two different versions of chatbots. Chatbots are the ones that are automated and the ones that don't require a person or like a human being to be behind it to answer. And there's two different types. The ones that are used with machine learning, so they use algorithms and they learn from conversations to respond to different things. And there's the ones that learn via scripts. So if you type a certain keyword, you type a certain thing, there's already a script and an answer that has been scripted for your query or your keyword. Now, these chatbots, you can see them in either on the social platforms, the messaging applications, such as Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp, but you can also see them in a native way. So these are the ones that are not based on a social platform, but you'll see a little box in a website or they're backed by an application, but they're not part of a social platform. So these are the type of different types of chats, and usually the ones that will be leveraged to create into marketing strategies will be the scripted ones, as the machine learning ones are much more difficult, and you can either use the native ones or the social platforms depending on your needs and depending on your industry and what you're really wanting to do with the chatbot.
Right. So first, I'll make sure that I got that straight. We've got two different real platforms that we're using. One platform is on a social platform. And if I'm right, because we may not even notice it if we're the recipient, it's the fact that we're logged into that social platform. And even if we're not, say, on Facebook at the moment, our login persists and we are getting that chat and being able to go through that chat because the person or the software at the other end knows that we're connected to that profile on that social platform. And then when you said native, what I take you to mean from that is it doesn't know who we are, but it is just running through a script that really could apply to anyone. And it doesn't worry about what social platforms I'm connected to. All it knows is I'm on the internet and I can have some kind of messaging back and forth with it. I just want to make sure. Is that right so far?
That's correct. And just to add to that, there's definitely a continuity of the data with your social platform. It's a platform that we already use, and that's why chatbots in those platforms are so popular, because they're utilizing a medium that we as consumers are already utilizing. But on the other side, there is the native ones where they're built up for anyone in the website, even if you don't have that social platform, so you can use it. And there's a few applications that people use, such as Drift, Chatfuel, and Intercom. So they're not social platforms; they're just a tool on the website
Oh,
to communicate with the visitors and the consumers on the other side.
cool. All right. So let's get into maybe the pros and cons, because I'm imagining that really depending on what we're trying to achieve, one of these ways of doing it makes more sense than the other. So, can you help me if you're talking with a client and they are not sure which method they're going to use? What kind of situations scream out to you, oh, this has to be a social platform? And what are the ones where you say, you know what, I would direct you to using a native?
Right. So that really depends what your business is, what kind of industry, and actually what side of the planet you're in. Because if you go to South America, for example, WhatsApp is used everywhere by businesses, by individuals. If you don't have WhatsApp in South America, you cannot do business over there, right? If you go to China, is WeChat. WeChat is the social media for everything. People make payments through it. And if you're not using WeChat, you cannot. It is a platform. It is a go-to platform in China, and it is definitely what you should be using. Now, in North America, we don't use. There's not a tool that everyone is using, but definitely the one that is the more powerful one is Messenger. Everyone has Facebook, or at least a lot of people, and through that they're using Messenger. Now there's the two big differences between whether you should use native or whether you should use social is, if you're, for example, a B2B, you don't want to discriminate people who don't have Facebook Messenger or who don't have WeChat or WhatsApp, right? Now, again, if you go to South America, you should be using WhatsApp because that's how everything is done over there. But if you're in North America, that's the main reason why people choose one or the other. Now, before we get into more specific which one's better, I'd like to talk a little bit about the benefits of all chatbots, right? Because
Yeah.
because there's definitely so much benefits of it. And what I like to start saying is chatbots are just a part of the ecosystem, just as any other marketing tactic. So what I'm about to say is like chatbots should not replace one or another traditional media marketing, or it doesn't replace anything, right? They're just an extra tool, an extra thing that is going to help you get more clients, more, and is going to help you streamline processes, right? But they do definitely have a lot of advantages, and I'm just going to go through some of them. First of all, as forms do and as all other things do, they capture data, right? So even if it's not a live chat, even if it's not a chat, but if it's a live agent, they're definitely capturing data. There's a track of the conversation. It definitely helps you to get to know the audience. Now, the main reason why people are using chatbots is very simple. they're just more engaging, right? They're not the boring form what everyone is using. They're more engaging, and they're not boring. They have that cool vibe that people, when they see a chatbot, they're like, oh, this is cool. That they have that cool factor. Now, another thing is, just as email marketing, they can be personalized. So you can personalize it to your audience. You can create different paths, and depending on what the user is looking for, you can really create a specific funnel for that. In some aspects, it can substitute email. And I think this is one of the biggest reasons why people are using chatbots, especially in the lead generation aspect, because we're all using forms for landing pages, we're all using forms for everything. But what if you could make the process a little bit more engaging? And what if you could follow up after they've signed up within a chatbot? Again, more engaging. If you're using social platforms, and this is one of the main benefits of the social platforms, you can continue the conversation there, and your open rate is going to be much higher than an email. Your click through is going to be much higher than an email. There are studies that they shown that their open rate can increase by by over 10 times, right? So I know a lot of people, their open rate, it's 20%. I've seen open rates higher than 80% on chatbots, right?
Sure.
And that's one of the main reasons for using a chatbot on social medias or messaging platforms, but also for managing the sales funnel, right? So if you have purchased something through a chatbot, then it allows you to give notifications of where the process is, the shipping process, right? Or it solves this abandoned cart problem, right? E-commerce says it's a huge problem. They are about to buy something and they leave the cart. What if you could send in a simple message on Messenger, which you're already using 90% of the time, right? Instead of an email, instead of an ad. I mean, obviously you should do all three. It should always be a part of the ecosystem, as I mentioned, but these are one of the major advantages. In terms of native, you may be asking, so why is it that if you could continue the conversation on the social platform, why should we be using native? And I think the answer is simple. If you're in North America, not everyone has Facebook, not everyone is using the social platforms, and you don't want to discriminate. The other
Right.
thing is, and the one thing for native is they're mostly used for B2B, or they're using for support systems, right? So if you're on a website and you want to trigger that lead magnet and then continue the conversation on email, or schedule an appointment with your salesperson, you can do all of that with a chatbot. So they can serve as a lead magnet, and they can serve a bigger part of the population. So usually mostly done for B2B. If you're an e-commerce, I would recommend for you to use Messenger if you're in North America. Again, if you're in South America, WhatsApp is what you should be using. If you're in China, WeChat. So it really depends again on your industry, where you are in the planet, the culture, what people are using. So there's a lot of factors, but whether or not you should be using one of the two, you should at least test it out and see what happens, right?
Perfect. I think that sums it up nicely. And what I heard was that we should look to use it to supplement places where we're trying to move people through a funnel. And what we don't even realize right now is there are actually friction points. So you talked about why it's better than email, and it dawned on me, well, of course, I'm, let's say, on your website and I want some information. And what you've told me is that to get that information, I have to fill out a form, and then I have to leave the website and I have to go over to my email, and whatever lead magnet you had for me is going to be there. I have to go and download it, versus a chat where it's frictionless. I'm staying right on your site and I'm giving you information that you deem helpful, and you give me the information that I deem helpful, but we haven't gone anywhere. So it's frictionless from that standpoint. And that seems like a really good way, at least for acquiring clients and acquiring prospects. That sounds like a really good way to use it.
I think the keyword is frictionless. I think you're right. It's definitely frictionless. It definitely improves the experience and more engaging. So you got it.
Oh, sweet. So if we switch off of like why we would use it and when it's appropriate to use it. Let's talk a little bit about what the bot's purpose is, because I want to make sure that how we use it is also genuine and achieves these great conversion rates and engagement rates that you're talking about. So maybe let's talk about what the relevant actions or options are. How are we going to think about what we need to do? Let's take the example of a script that we're putting out. How do we think about putting that script together so that we can get them to that action, like getting a lead magnet or maybe giving us information so that we can have a live agent talk with them?
Right. So to start with, let me remind you again that a chatbot, and just like any other tool, it has a learning curve, right? And because you don't know what people are going to be asking, you should expect that you're not going to have all the answers at the beginning. There's going to be a lot of things that you're going to have to test out. And as you get more data, you're going to improve your chatbot. Now,
Okay.
yeah. So now, as to how do you approach, how to, what keywords, what do we go? There's a few tactics. And if you, for example, on e-commerce, the first thing I think you should do is go to other websites of e-commerces and see what they're doing, what are their actions that they're taking, and
Sure.
maybe map out your funnel and see where in the funnel can you put that chatbot, or where can what problem in a specific part of the funnel can it solve. Another strategy is to create a flow chart. So if you create a flow chart of where of the main things that people have asked you that, and by the way, that's an excellent way to start. Is think of your customers. What are the specific questions that they ask? What are the frequently asked questions? What are the usual comments? What are people asking, and what are their concerns and their objections? And I recommend you to start with that, because that's an amazing basis. And if, for example, they ask about cost, and you can put cost as a keyword, you should also make a specific actions. You should also put a specific options. So, for example, if your goal is to create lead generation, maybe you don't want to leave it in the open for them to type whatever they want. Maybe you want to give specific options and lead them to a specific goal that you've set out from the beginning, right? So with the actions at every stage, you can make sure that you control where they go, and not necessarily where they're typing whatever they want, and where they're asking wherever they want. You can bring them wherever you want them to go.
I think that's a great point. And I think if I look at how I would do it, I could easily get overwhelmed with the idea that I have to be able to anticipate every question. That sounds to me as hard as like what IBM had to do when they took Watson and they wanted to put it on Jeopardy, right? And it had to be ready to answer any question. You're right. We don't have to be that open. Maybe the word we can use is closed, that we are maybe going to start with a closed question like, would you like to download our white paper? And the answers, are quite simple. And there, you can even, if correct me if I'm wrong, just put multiple choice answers that they can click on. So you can actually keep it rather closed to a simple pattern of statement, response, and get them to what you want. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, there's a few tools out there that are even for free, that you can even use for free, right? There's ManyChat, Drift, a lot of these companies that allow you to build a chatbot. They have a version that is for free, and you can use them, and they work, and you can test it out if it's for you. And if you want to move on to a more expensive version, or you want to build something bigger, you can start from there and start building your chatbot as you go.
Okay. So we do need to, we can play around with the tool, but we do need to start to put our mind in a place where we're anticipating some of the things that people might need, or offering them things that we have seen past customers ask about or need. What do we do when it comes to figuring out what the character of the bot is? Are we trying to pass it off as a real person, or are we there are ethical issues here of how we decide to explain who they're talking to. What do you think about that?
Right. So I would not recommend to make your chatbot make it look like it's a real person. If there's one thing I've learned, is that people don't want to be deceived. I think marketers have overdone it with trying to come up with tactics to try and trick the public. And I think people just simply do not want to be deceived, do not want to be dealing with something that it is something that it is not to. So I think the best option is just to make it clear that it's a bot, right? In terms of personality, you can definitely give it a personality. And something I recommend is what is your brand's personality, right? Recently I did a speaking engagement on this where your brand is a character, is a fictional character of the leaders of your company. It is the self-reflection of the people of your company. And I think this is something you can do with your chatbot as well. You can look at the leaders, your team, and you can try to give them the same personality so they feel as it is part of the team. And what you can do as well is make it funny. Don't be afraid to make it funny, to use emojis, to make it a little bit more to make it a little bit more personal, and use a little bit of comedy. Of course, it's going to depend on your industry and your service and product, but I would try to make it as engaging as possible, right? Because usually the higher the engagement, the people like it, and usually they'll get farther down the line with the chatbot.
Interesting. It sounds like something that other companies have done, and it's not so weird to, like you said, dress it up a little bit or give the bot, a kind of silly name. I mean, if we think for a second about how even Hollywood awards, we've got the Oscars, the Emmys. When we look at professional sports teams, we've got mascots. It's not that much different. What they've simply done, like you said, is they've taken the personalities of the people who started those groups and tried to distill that down into something that, the public or the buying audience can relate to. So it's actually pretty simple.
Exactly. And if you take a look at, for example, Starbucks, you go to any of their stores, it's very consistent. Their brand is very consistent. Everyone that you meet that working at Starbucks, the chatbot should be no exception, right? The chatbot is going to be part of a communication tool with clients, and therefore it should
Right.
be as consistent with your brand as everything else in your company, right?
So if you're the marketer designing these, go around to the people who either speak in the customer success team or people who are even in sales, maybe ask them for copies of their scripts and look for the types of things they talk about and the way they talk about it, right?
Exactly. And something to note here is that a lot of the times for your support chatbots, people still want to talk to real humans. So I mean in no way that a chatbot should replace humans. It does facilitate the process, but a lot of the times there should always be an option for people to talk with a real person, because there's just so many scenarios that can never be filled out completely with a chatbot, right? There's always unique scenarios.
So the chatbot, if I hear you right, has to be honest about its shortcomings. And if the few things that you've got it geared to say don't cover what the person on the other end wants, it sounds like you need to offer a bridge. So how do we handle that if we have, let's say, a 9 to 5 person who's able to talk on the phone to someone, but the chatbot is running 24/7? What should the chatbot try to do if it's encountering somebody at 10 o'clock at night?
There's a few options you can do, right? You can always bring them at the end of, if the chatbot can't answer the specific question, you can always bring them to an appointment tool where they can book an appointment or a call with an agent at the time where they're at, right? And again, the chatbot is just a tool to help facilitate things and to answer those frequently questions, those freaking questions. But there's always going to be those unique scenarios. And yes, you mentioned it is one of the shortcomings of the chatbot. It will also take a while to make the language right and to collect all the data that you need to cover everything. And again, you'll never be able to cover absolutely everything. Um, it is simply a tool to help you out. It is another method of communication. Again, part of the full ecosystem in marketing.
That's cool. You mentioned the data, and I'd really like to know a little bit about that, because it sounds like we can optimize a bot even after we've launched it. What kinds of data do we get when we have a bot, and how do we figure out how to make it better?
It's actually crazy how much data you can get from a chatbot, especially if you're using a social network like Messenger. If you create a chatbot with Messenger, you don't even have to ask them for their first and last name, just like you would in a form, right? You can get their first, last name, you can get their language, you can get their location in terms of like country and stuff like that, right? You get a lot of data, and you can use this to create really specific personas. Another thing is, for example, if you're using a chatbot with Messenger, a lot of the times when you're asking them for to give their email, it will pre-fill their email, right? Because Facebook obviously knows what your email is. And the other thing is, as you build conversations, you can dig into these conversations and find keys and find things that people things they have said, or maybe you get a lot of feedback from this, which you can implement in your product or service. Another thing is with e-commerce, right? You can get a lot of data based on what people how they engage with the chatbot, right? If they convert through an abandoned cart message, or how much they've spent on your website with the chatbot, or what is the average value that they spend on the chatbot. So there's definitely a lot of data that you can get, and as you build the conversations with individuals through chatbots, the more data you're going to get, right?
Yeah, it sounds like it. I think the other thing that we can keep in mind is we talked about things like when we have a bot going, and, that would definitely be good for off hours, but it doesn't take the place of if we have a chat tool that allows a live agent to talk with someone. We could just go and ask them after they've sat on it for a few days and responded to things. So, what are the most common questions? And, there are even anecdotal ways that we can get data, right?
Exactly. As you're saying, there's always going to be people who want to talk with a real person. And just to show an example, if you go to a grocery store, there's always going to be people that do not want to use the self-serve. They want someone to help them out with their groceries and stuff like that. And it is the exact same thing with chatbots. There's always going to be people wanting to make the call. There's people who want their preferred method of communication is email. Some others that it is the chatbot. Some others that it is something else, social media maybe, right? So again, it is just another method of communication, another tool to add to your communication tools. It is not something that is going to replace email. It is not going to replace the live conversations with people. It is not going to replace your social media messaging, or your email marketing, or call center, right? It is just another tool.
Yeah, and what you've said actually hits home, because one of the reasons that I haven't yet put any kind of chat function in place for us is I was saying to myself that our audience wouldn't do that. But you're right. No audience is completely uniform, and I shouldn't be denying to the subset of the audience that wants to use chat the chance to use it.
Absolutely. And you know what? Chatbots do not have to be complicated at all, right? I think one of the most effective ways to use chatbots is just to put them on your product pages. There's two main places in your website that usually people use chatbots, and it is in your product pages and in your support system, right? Now in your product pages, it doesn't have to be complicated. Maybe you have a chatbot pop up and be like, do you have any questions? And maybe it's not really a chatbot, because as soon as you answer the question, it will say, okay, leave us your email, and a person will respond back to you. Again, it's not really answering the question. It is just making it seem like they can give you the answer and be like, oh, you have to actually talk to a real person, right? And this is most chatbots just do this. They just ask you, do you have any questions about the product on the product page? You ask the question, they ask you, okay, give us your email, and an agent will get back to you with the answer for your question. It is another incentive for people to engage with your product, with your people, and as we know it, the more touch points you have with your audience, the more likely they're to purchase, right?
Yeah, and I love the grocery store example because it helps highlight right there. The grocery store doesn't put the cashiers or the self-service all through the store. They put them at the outside, near the exit of the store. And the product page for us is kind of like one of those places where, by the very fact that they're on that page, they probably have something, figuratively speaking, in their arms, and we can probably help them at that point. But if they were over on our blog or on our About Us page, they're probably not in a frame of mind where they have a question. So that's a really good way of kind of helping us think of, well, this is ordinarily the point where somebody does have a question. So can I help you?
Exactly. It is definitely higher. There's definitely a higher intent in those pages than in the rest of the website.
Cool. Andres, you got to tell me, I really am interested in knowing, how did you come to be a person who likes and uses these tools for generating leads and for providing customer success? What do you think it is about, your background or your schooling or the kinds of things that you're into that really drew you to this?
Right. That's a very interesting question, by the way. I think I'm a very curious person, and I think that's the biggest part of it. I'm just curious. I like to test things, and I think as any marketer should do, they should just be testing one thing after the other. You never know, right? What's gonna work and what's not gonna work. For me, it was just plain curiosity. I saw it working once and I was like, oh, I wonder if there's a tool out there that lets me create a chatbot easily where I can test it out and just see what happens, right? I found ManyChat. Once I had that thought and created my first chatbot, we created our first chatbot for a client, which ended up being just another lead magnet, right? So it wasn't anything crazy. We're still running the landing pages with the forms, but we wanted to run the messenger chatbot, see if people go through the same process, same questions, same everything, but just in a conversational manner instead of a form. And the results were great. Now, again, like as we've been talking about, everyone has their preferences. We still use landing pages. We still use that combination of everything. But yeah, really, what got us into using chatbots, or how I first got interested into chatbots, was just curiosity, the an interest of trying new things, of innovating ourselves, or finding the new ways, right? And that's it. And if I can leave with something for the audience today, even if they don't hear anything, is for any marketer listening out there, you should just be constantly trying things, right? And that's a huge part of our business culture. I tell our team all the time, I don't care if we're the best agency in the world. All I care is that we're a tiny little bit better each day. If we can just innovate ourselves just one tiny little bit every day, that's all I'm asking, right? Just learn a few things today, each day. Take 15 minutes of your workday to read an article, to watch a video, whatever it is. It is super important, even if you're not a marketer, to constantly be improving yourself. Doesn't matter if you're best or not. What matters is that you're better than you were yesterday.
Andres, that's very well said. And I appreciate how you've given us some ideas that don't even involve money. Like you say, they involve a little bit of time invested and maybe signing up for a trial of one of these tools. But it sounds like we can get going on this and, have maybe some early stumbles, but to get ourselves to a point where we actually are maybe besting the conversion rates that we're getting for that landing page that offers a lead magnet. And I think once any of us reaches that point, it's easy for us to say, well, now we really have something and we should continue to invest in it. But what's the harm of trying?
Exactly.
So it's not an or, it's an and it has a lot of potential for us. And conversation is basically how humans work. So this is a technology that we owe it to ourselves to look at and take some experimentation with, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to give you a couple examples of some things that we've done with chatbots, just so that the audience have an idea of like what are the multiple uses. You can transform any lead magnet that you have into a chatbot and just test that out, right? If you have an e-commerce, again, you can use it for abandoned cart, for new products, discounts, for purchases. Again, if you put it on your product page, maybe all you do is Ask us a question. Do you have any questions about the product service? Just ask us something. Something that we did for a company was to do a rental value for a property. So if you give us a few details, the chatbot would give you approximately what the rental value for your property is, right? And or another thing is just ask for feedback, right? A lot of people underestimate the power of asking for feedback, and with your chatbot is just another tool to do that.
I love that last one because all of our websites need improvement, and an easy way to do it is just say, "Did you find what you were looking for today?"
Absolutely, yeah. That's super powerful right there, and it wouldn't take that much or a lot of resources to do that.
Right. So we're not even really fishing for a lead there, but if one person out there tells us something that we didn't realize about our website, and we make the website better, it's better for every future visitor.
Exactly, and you know what? Sometimes we believe that those leads are always the ones that are gonna just give us the full details and ask and be ready to sign up. But really, a lot of the times, the best leads are the ones that are asking questions right from the beginning and do increase in having a lot of touch points with your company, right? So again, if you can increase your touch points, I truly believe that just by increasing your touch points, you can increase your conversion rate.
I agree. So, Andres, you have obviously given this a lot of work inside your agency, and I think it's great that you are coming on here as well as going out and doing talks about it. Where can people reach out to you if they want to find out more?
100%. Thank you so much, Glenn. And they can just go to our website, noeticmarketer.com, or they can connect with me directly on LinkedIn. Again, my name is Andres Tovar. We do a lot of multi-channel, super targeted campaigns for medium businesses, small businesses, content marketing, SEO. So if anyone has any question, we usually give a free consultation where there is no sales pitch. We're not trying to sign you up to anything. We're just trying to help you answer a few questions. And after that, if there's a good fit, if you think we can do something for you, we can move on from there.
Really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you so much, Glenn. The pleasure has been mine. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I've been having a blast. So thank you.
No problem. Well, to everybody listening, that's all for today. And if you like what you heard today, I'd welcome you to reach out to us. I'll have Andres's details also in the show notes. If you want to reply, because we want to be conversational, go ahead and leave a mention on my own personal Twitter, Hey Glenn S, or at Funnel Reboot. You're welcome to check out all the show notes on our site at Funnel Reboot. And if you know somebody else who needs to hear this, please go ahead and share the episode with them. I'd really, really appreciate that.
Thanks for listening. Follow the show on Twitter at Funnel Reboot. If you like what you have heard today, please consider leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts.